You're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense with your host, Doug Thorpe. Here's Doug.
Well, hello again, everyone. This is Doug Thorpe, and you're listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Today, my guest is going to teach us something about the chiropractic method of leadership development and analysis. Her name is Rita Malvone, and we're going to dive right in. Rita, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Doug. I'm so happy to be here.
When I got your bio information, it really did catch my attention. I think it's a catchy theme. Explain to folks what is the chiropractic method.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny. It came about because I was describing how the work that I do evolves, and I actually said it's like working with when you've ever gone to the chiropractor. And when you go to the chiropractor, what they do is they zone in on that exact little pain point and then click and it goes back into place. And that's exactly what we do. When I'm working with a leader or working with a team, we zone in on the exact pain point. There's peripheral areas of problems for sure, but we really go to the root of where the pain is. And we do that needs analysis to really understand what's causing the issues, and then we dive in and we really pinpoint and adjust. That small adjustment makes a huge impact.
I like that, and that is so often, and to me, it's very consistent with my theme of common sense leadership style and approach. Sometimes you just gotta peel away all the complexities of things and don't overthink your situation. Sometimes there is a very specific area that if you can identify that click opportunity to turn it off, eliminate it, or adjust it, and then move on, you'll get that kind of that 80-20 effect. A little adjustment gives you a big 80% bounce in what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. It's a complete not butterfly effect, when you throw a stone in the water, the ripple effect. It's that complete impact. Truly, it really can have such a magnifying difference. Can I tell you a story?
Please.
Recent team that I've been working with, the team's just struggling. One of the challenges that are being faced right now here in China, I'm based in China. One of the challenges the teams that are there are facing is they've never seen an economic slowdown before. You know, China came out into a capitalistic mode of business back in the mid 80s. People started up their companies, and now it's 40 years later. Next generation is running those companies, and the economy is not cooperating for the first time. And so these leaders are having to look at their teams and look at their business in a different way. And the teams are looking at their work in a different way, and they're fighting with each other. You know, when you take the water out of the pool, you see the cracks in the foundation, and the cracks are there. Primarily, they've never done leadership development. They've never worked together on common goals and shared priorities. And so when you start working with these teams, you can see all of this going around on the outside. But what I noticed more than anything with this one particular team is that the CEO, it was so micromanaging that the team didn't have space to breathe. And even though it looked like there was infighting with each other, the infighting was caused by the CEO's micromanagement. So that minor adjustment to get her to take a step back and recognize that she's not leading a team of 20 people. She's leading a team of over 200 people. Her business needs to move to that next level. And in order to do that, she can't be worried about the crispness of the vegetables in the canteen. And yet that's where her focus goes, right into the details. So once we understood that and we started peeling that back, well, why? Well, the why is she's never learned how to lead. She's always been in the company. Her father started the business, and now she's nervous taking those leadership steps. She's nervous that she'll make things worse than what the economy is already making them. So when we peel that back and we start zoning in, okay, how do we adjust that? And once we adjust her nerves and adjust her focus, the impact has been sizable. The teams are feeling great. The profitability is coming back, and the team alignment is stronger than it's ever been. We have to adjust the minor things.
When you were talking about the fighting among associates and then revealed more of the story, what came through my mind, it was kind of like they were fighting a common enemy in the CEO's approach.
100%. 100%. In fact, we were doing a workshop, and I've never seen this in a Chinese team before. The entire leadership team, about 15 people, sat there with the CEO and told her, you need to step away. You need to stop doing that. And I've never seen a Chinese team defer the hierarchy before, but they did it. They needed to.
Well, that is interesting, and we may touch on the cultural aspects of this because, I've done work with global brands before as well, and often you do ask the question, how much is the cultural bias in the geography, driving what might be going on in a particular work unit. And I get an interesting variety of responses. I was dealing with one of the large oil companies, for instance, and I too was working with some representatives from their China-based and Asia-Pacific-based operation. And I asked a Chinese national, I asked her, I said, how much of the cultural impact is going on? And in her case, she said, oh, make no mistake, we may be operating out of China, but this is very clearly a U.S. company. We've all learned how to adopt the U.S. style of communication and interaction. And then that's one extreme on the scale. And then back to, the more traditional things it sounds like you've experienced in a lot of situations.
Yeah, I try to keep a foot in both worlds. I do work with a lot of Western companies, and the mindset needs to be different. And it's those people who can maintain that strategic thinking, that broader perspective, are the ones that will thrive in a Western environment. In the traditional Chinese organizations that I work with, the deference to hierarchy is definitely still there. But what we're seeing more and more of is that people are coming in from overseas. They want more ownership. And now it's a battle between ownership and empowerment. And will the leaders empower the teams in a way that demonstrates the trust that they're looking for? So finding that, and what I'm loving right now is there are so many Chinese teams that are really looking for a different way of doing things. They don't want their father's type of company anymore. And the younger generation won't tolerate it. So they would rather not work than work in an environment of stress and hierarchy and inability to make their own decisions and have autonomy.
That's a very interesting and somewhat profound statement in my mind. I think your summation there is true even in the Western world. A lot of the younger generations, and I hear this a lot with my more senior leaders, they can't read the book. They're frustrated by the implied or sometimes even expressed expectation of some of the younger folks in their workforce. And they're saying, in a word, what I talk about is command and control is dead in most cases. Now, there's still very certain situations, but in general, if your company of first generation ownership was a heavy-handed command and control style, the younger folks aren't going to suffer that.
No, they're absolutely not. The thing we in my generation needs to recognize, which we struggle with, this generation that's out there now grew up with computers. They are way more computer savvy than I'll ever be. They grew up with an independence and an autonomy that I certainly didn't. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, we had one television, one telephone, we had we didn't have our own suitcase when we went traveling. And now the generation that's out there grew up with their own bedrooms, their own independent space, and their telephones have been with them since they began. They've never learned anything but the freedom of choice of what they want to watch, what they want to engage with on social media. We did not grow up that way, and so that's a definite challenge.
So, how can you or how do you help leaders understand that? And what are some of the practical suggestions you offer clients?
That's a great question. So I give them that exact story, and so we start with that, and then from there move into, okay, well, where's their comfort zone? How far away from their comfort zone are they willing to go? And it really boils down to trust. Can we trust the individuals that are in our team? And if we can't, why? Are we not trusting their authenticity? Are we not trusting their logic? Are we not trusting their empathy and their care and their commitment? And once we understand that, then how do we move forward? And so, working with leaders, I challenge them. I really do. I am not the nice, gentle coach. I'm pretty direct, and I'm pretty focused on how do we get the best out of you by holding up a mirror that you might not know is there.
Right, right. I think that's a great point. I think really challenging the, popular buzzword is a paradigm, challenge the leader's paradigm. Where are they coming from and what have they embraced? And I am still to this day routinely surprised. I shouldn't be, but I am at the number of leaders that get promoted up to a position and they start acting a certain way, and you go, why? Why are you doing that? And when you peel the onion a little bit, what you realize is it comes from their perception of the leader before them and why they were successful.
Mm-hmm.
And they attribute certain behaviors and certain values to that prior leader who may have been horrible. Truth be told,
Yeah.
I mean, they might have gotten results, but the people didn't like working there, and the new leader gets an opportunity, and then they just start doing the same thing again. And I'm like you. When I hear that, I challenge them. It's like, is that really necessary?
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, when you were working for that guy, did you enjoy it? The answer is no, I didn't. And okay,
Yeah.
well, why are you doing it?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It's human nature to want to just stay with the status quo. And it's really great leaders who move away from that, who dare to do the difference, who dare to empower and grow their teams beyond. Who I see all the time, teams afraid of developing their next employee because they might take my job. Well, yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal, is that if you've got somebody ready to take your job, then you can take something else and you can move on. And so often you're stuck in a job because there is nobody ready to take it. And people have to switch into that mindset. But if you developed somebody so they could take your job, where could you go next? But they're afraid that they'll lose. And we have to teach them and coax it out of them that it's not a loss. It's an absolute win.
Well, let me, on that note, let me take a detour here. Let's flip the script a little bit. I want to go back to the generational handoff. First generation has exited, next generation steps in. And I want to come from the 180 on this because in the back of my mind, I've got a story of a company I know about where the father was the founder and ran it for 30 years and grew the business from zero to very respectable. 8 and 9 digit years. And now the dad wants to step away, so Junior has been given the reins. Well, in this case, Junior was not at all prepared. He's got some really bad ideas that have already manifested and impacted the company in a very negative way. There's already been a wave of critical employees that have just simply exited because they don't like working for the guy. And as the story goes, he has huddled with a mastermind that is, by all accounts, giving him some really bad ideas about what to do. And so he's participating in a group think to augment what he probably feels is his own gaps, which on his surface, that's a good thing. If you perceive you've got gaps, go get help. But you got to be careful who you ask and what kind of guidance you're getting, right?
Exactly.
So talk to us about that. What are some of your experiences in that generational handoff?
Well, like I said, in the case of the Chinese, it's a perfect storm. There's generational handoff at the same time of an economic downturn, and that's just causing the second generation to lose face with their parent because you're not able to do it as well as I did. It's causing them to run into challenges with their team, their own self-trust, and they don't really know where to go. But then when you see this happening, it's the good ones that want to fix it. It's the good ones that recognize the problem and want to take an adjustment. And then I think you just work with that. I see it in Western businesses. What I see the challenge being is the next generation doesn't want to be in it. And they want to be doctors instead of following their father's footsteps. And as a result, there is no generation to hand it off to. And so the parent ends up running a business far longer than they should. At least that's been my experience. They probably should have handed it off, sold it off, or done something different 10 or 15 years earlier, because somebody in their 70s running a company that is trying to stay ahead right now in a world where there's 5 generations to the people that are hands-on in the business right now. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard one.
Well, yeah, you touch on a very sensitive point, and I've done some work in that space with the entrepreneur who wants to exit because there is no generational handoff. The next generation has made it clear they don't want to be part of the business, and you're right. When that is forced, it's usually never a good thing because the new leader doesn't even want to be there. So that creates all kinds of problems. And you're right. It is a very important consideration for that owner founder who's late 50s, 60s, going into 70s. If they haven't already prepared the business to be sold. The statistics right now are terrible about the success rate on a proper sale of those businesses. I've got a good colleague that is a specialist in the getting ready for sale kind of arena. And he's going gangbusters because, so many of the boomers are aging out, and there's press about this so-called silver tsunami that's going on. All these businesses, particularly in the U.S., that are coming up for sale, and some government agencies have estimated it in the $6 to $7 trillion of value that is needing to be transferred, or it's going to be shut down, and jobs are going to be lost, and it'll be a very bad situation.
100%. The thing that we're seeing in China right now is a mergers and acquisitions space with Western companies. So exactly that family-owned Western business being bought or merged with a Chinese company that wants to go west, and it becomes this absolute opportunity for this development, which we can't you can't you can't ask for something better, right? That entrepreneur who's 50, 60, 70 wanting to sell out, and a Chinese company wanting to get a footprint somewhere else. So it's really fantastic opportunities. And we're seeing so much of that right now.
Right. Well, let's go back again, Rita. Any other, quick stories of some of your ability to go in and act as that chiropractor and find that pain point?
Yeah, it seems to happen more and more. And what I would say is the key for me is when I'm working with a leader or working with a team is really spending a lot of time on needs analysis. It's like prepping for a negotiation. 80% of the work is done before the actual event. And that's how I feel about the chiropractic method. It's all about touching around, finding that sensitive spot in the needs analysis, and then designing around that. So recently working with a team from Europe, that it's a family-owned business based here in China, very strong local team, but the CEO is a Brit who's relatively new, and the trust level isn't there. So what's happening is the Chinese team is going back to their German counterparts if they don't like the answer they're getting from the Brit. And so spending some time understanding this from all different levels and speaking to the different employees and the leadership team to understand what's going on. Needs analysis came back to, we just don't know each other very well. We don't have a lot of trust in each other. We have trust in our work silos, but we don't have a cross-functional trust. And as a result, the team is suffering. So spending time with them to build a foundation of trust, to talk about what's causing a lack of trust, to speak to the headquarters and make sure that they understand that China, in order for China to be successful, China has to be a team, not the vertical, but the horizontal. And I think that's a fundamental issue that so many teams and multinationals mix up when we get those matrix organizations. Your team is not your vertical. The vertical is a group of people who do the same job. The team is the horizontal. It's the cross-functionals that work together. And so once you get into that space where they have to understand how they have to rely on each other and that one is not more important than the other. Sales isn't any more important than the manufacturing, because if you can't build it, I can't sell it. They have to understand that. And that silo mentality breaks that down. So once we got that understood, and through a few days of hard workshops and a little bit of disbelief, they started breaking down those silos and started looking at each other to see how does what you do affect me, and how does what I do affect you? And it sounds so silly as an outsider. Of course, manufacturing affects sales, but in it, they can't see it. So that's the sort of thing that will happen. It's breaking that mindset of I'm more important than you, or I have to focus on my vertical, not my horizontal.
Yeah. As you were describing that, what was going through my mind was the notion of, and I'm thinking of the life journey of a business from startup through grow up, scale up, and then it becoming a full-fledged enterprise. There's a lot said, and I do a lot of work in that space of looking at that growth pattern of a business. And as the old saying goes, new level, new devil. When you make those milestones, you're going to be introduced to new challenges that you didn't have before. And when the size of the enterprise starts to really scale up, on the one hand, you do want to see specialists emerge that are great performers and producers in that vertical. You need that, but you can't lose that horizontal connectivity and communication. And I think that's the point. A lot of times, these businesses, after they've operated at that enterprise level for a while, those verticals really start to get entrenched. And
Absolutely.
there's almost, they create their own moats around what they're doing, not realizing that, if the sales guys aren't out there, there's no point in producing anything.
Oh, absolutely. I was very, very fortunate twice in my adult life in this very regard. When I went to university, I studied at Boston University School of Management back in the day. Now it's called the Questrom School of Business. I'm old, but back in the day when we did that, we were forced into cross functionals. And our professors forced themselves into cross functionals. So there was no accounting department sitting with each other or the operations department sitting with each other. They sat cross functionally. So no two offices were the same department next to each other. And we were taught by that method. And we worked in teams and our classes were taught as a collective because no individual company operates just by having an information system. It needs a marketing team, it needs a finance team, and they have to work together and they have to understand that. That was the first time I was really given that opportunity to entrench myself in cross functionals. And then later in my career, when I was with Ford Motor Company, I had this great opportunity to be on a purchasing team for a commodity that was very, very hot. So I bought wheels, wheels sell cars, and wheels are very sexy. And they're the jewelry of the cars. And I was the buyer for the wheels, which meant that I got to interact with marketing and interact with sales and engineering and studio. Most products on the car don't get that opportunity. So if you're the buyer of door beams, you might have an interaction with quality, maybe an engineer, but you're certainly not engaging with marketing. You're certainly not engaging with studio and style. And so that was a great opportunity for me to see how the car came together and see how all the different functions have to work in order for success to happen, in order for us to get through the financial gateway, in order for the vehicle to really launch. And then with launch, what are we launching with? What are the prettiest things we're going to put out there? What are the ones that are going to sell the best? And working with marketing to make sure that we had the right volumes in our system, the right numbers in the forecast. It's really fascinating. It was a great opportunity because so many people are exactly as you say, those verticals get so thick that you don't have that opportunity to see really the bigger impact of what you're working on.
Yeah, great story. And I had a Army buddy that after our Army service, he went to work for Ford. And when I ran into him a couple of years later, he was an engineer by training, but we got into a discussion, and I forget how we started the discussion, but it came down to, he said, "Doug, you don't realize when we're purchasing nuts and bolts," he said, "just a fraction of a penny on a unit." He said, "We do millions of those in a particular assembly." And he said, "It adds up very fast."
It really, really does. And I can say that with honesty because my first job there was buying those nuts and bolts. And they were out 4 and 5 decimal points, but the billions of them that we were buying,
Right.
It made a difference.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff. Well, Rita, I think this has been great. We're about up on time. Tell folks the best way to get a hold of you.
Doug, thank you. I am social media limited, so I don't look at my website. It hasn't been updated in years, but LinkedIn is pretty accurate. So my name, Rita Malvone, at LinkedIn is the easiest way to get a hold of me, and I answer all messages there.
Great. Well, as always, folks, we'll have that link in the show notes. So be sure if anything Rita has shared is interesting to you, feel free to reach out to her. And one last time, Rita, thanks so much. Appreciate you being here.
I've loved every minute of it. Thanks, Doug, so much.
Well, folks, this is the part of the show. I like to remind you we do have a video version of this over on YouTube, channel by the same name, Leadership Powered by Common Sense. Go over there, check out our archives, and take a look at the topics we've covered in the past, the guests we've had. If you've got an idea for a guest or you yourself might like to be a guest, drop me a note. Let me know that. You can reach me at my website, dougthorpe.com. There's a lot of links there to reach out one way or another, but would love to hear from you. And I think we're about a wrap for today. So go out there, make it a great one.
You've been listening to Leadership Powered by Common Sense, hosted by Doug Thorpe. If you would like to know more about the coaching and advisory services he provides, visit dougthorpe.com.